I've checked out and I've started thinking about Hamilton the musical. And it's like, no, your brain is just seeking novelty. It's just seeking stimulus wherever it can get it. And so punishing yourself for that or judging yourself for that is just going to make the situation 10 times worse, because now you're obsessively going, okay, be in the moment. No, be in the moment harder. Be in the moment even harder. Like, am I enjoying myself?
Right. Always very helpful.
Yeah, always very helpful to just evaluate, the moment
and shame yourself
in the moment and shame yourself for not being in the moment hard enough, right?
Yeah. Welcome to Sex for Couples, helping you and your partner stop stressing and start having fun in the bedroom again. Hello, my friends. We're here with an amazing guest episode today, all about sex and ADHD and neurodivergence. And to help us with this very fun topic, we have Cate Osborn, also known as Cate online, who is an ADHD content creator, a sex educator, and a best-selling author. So welcome, Cate.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for being here. Yeah, we discovered we both have improv backgrounds before we hit record, which is fun. So I love finding the overlap in the ADHD-ness and where we tend to gravitate. It's kind of fun.
I feel like legally, if you have ADHD, you have to at least have dabbled in improv like once, it's like a little zip zap zap on top of everything.
And podcasting, by the way, have you noticed? I'm like so many good podcasters, because I feel like we can just talk to ourselves.
Yeah. It's like that's sort of like, I also feel like it's just like info dumping. You know what I mean? Is what is a podcast if not your time to info dump about things that you really care about in the ways that, you know what I mean? I like it. It's fun.
I know. It's interesting. So one of the things that's happened in my career, and I don't know if you've seen this with sex education, but I never advertised that I had ADHD or that I wanted to work with neurodivergent people, but they seem to have all found me. So I was like, oh, more than half my caseload, there's someone neurodivergent. That's interesting. So I suspect a lot of the listeners, even if they may not have identified that way before, are like, yeah, that tracks. But this is a topic we haven't really covered on the podcast in 180 episodes. So I'm actually very...
Well, thanks for having me. Boy,
I know.
Pressure's on.
I know. So, and I think when I first heard of this overlap, I was kind of like, did those things really go together? Like, how do ADHD and sex need a topic? So can you start with that? Like, why is this important to cover?
Oh my God, Heather, how long do you have? Because this is like, honestly, this is the reason why I do the work that I do, is because that is often the reaction that I get is, well, what does ADHD have to do with sex? And the answer is everything, literally everything. Because there's I think a lot of misunderstandings and misconceptions when it comes to ADHD. And it's this idea that it is this thing that impacts your work, or it impacts your ability to return a text message or find your keys or whatever. But ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder, disability, whichever word you prefer using, that impacts you from quite literally the moment that you struggle to go to bed to the moment you struggle to wake up. And within there is contained our entire lives, right? It is intimacy, it is relationships, it is communication. And when you really boil down ADHD and you really start looking at some of the struggles, the symptoms, the challenges that we face, a lot of it has to do around things like executive functioning. And what is executive functioning? It is task management, is task organization, task prioritization. It is emotional regulation. It is rejection sensitivity. It is all of these different things. And all of those, every single one of those impacts your sex life. Every single one. Attention, your ability to focus, your ability to regulate your attention. Great, but what happens when you're trying to get down and dirty and the neighbor starts mowing their lawn, or the ceiling fan is clicking and it's all you can focus on, and so what we see in science, scientifically, what we see is that a huge percentage of the ADHD population really struggles with sex and intimacy. They struggle with developing intimate relationships. They struggle with being in healthy partnerships. They struggle around just the actual act of having sex. Yeah. And that's just the island of ADHD. That's not considering all of the comorbidities that very frequently come with ADHD. People with ADHD are statistically much more likely to live with depression and anxiety, to a certain extent, OCD, things like sleep disorders, even things like sexual dysfunction. All of those things are often sort of part of the combo platter of ADHD. And then to a certain offshoot, there's also the fact that a huge percentage of people with ADHD are also autistic. But because of the way that ADHD and autism were researched very disparately, we are only now beginning to kind of understand what it looks like when someone is what we've started calling ADHD, where you are autistic and ADHD at the same time, which is the boat that I find myself in. And that is, again, and that the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, that dual experience is impacting your ability to function and your ability to sort of thrive in relationships. And so there's a lot to talk about. I just talked for a really long time. I'm sorry.
No, it's great. I love it when people get on a roll. I think it's fun.
And another thing,
the comorbidity thing was interesting. I also have OCD, so that's one of my things. And then you talked also about the overlap with eating disorders and binge eating, which I've also dealt with. And I'm like, and I didn't get diagnosed officially until my 40s. I thought I had it in my 20s and was actually told twice that I did not have it. When I literally I check like every box, you know? But I think the tests miss a lot of things, which you guys do cover in the book at the end too. You're like, some of the tests are actually not all that standardized and accurate. And I was like, very true.
Yeah. And this is a weird digression, but I literally somebody asked me this question the other day, but like a lot of the tests are also not designed for anybody outside of the very sort of normative box. And so, for example, people with like disabilities, like deaf people really struggle with like ADHD screenings. Like there are all of these different sort of communities and people who don't necessarily fit into the diagnostic boxes that we have sort of designed these tests around. And so you wind up being people who are diagnosed in your 30s and your 40s and your 50s because you just fall through the cracks. And that feeling of there must be something or internalizing these messages of like, I'm just broken, I'm just a fuck up, there's just something wrong with me.
I know.
Also really contributes to our ability to fully engage in intimacy and fully engage in healthy, loving, safe relationships. And we see this again, like, and another thing, we also see especially women with ADHD, are much more likely to experience sexual assault. They are much more likely to
That was a wild statistic for me to read in your book. I was like, really? Wow.
Yeah. So sexual assault, we are much more likely to be to struggle with intimate partner violence. We are much more likely, like you said, to deal with like eating disorders and body image issues. We are more likely to engage in self-harm. We are much more likely to deal with like suicidal ideation. And so there's all of these very, very serious, very, very profound impacts that ADHD has on our sex life, on our consent, on our autonomy, that really kind of doesn't fit into that conversation about like, it's just this wacky thing where you lose your keys.
Right. You're just fun and quirky. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's kind of the foundation of the work that I do is really, really important that we know about these other things and you know, the other, I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah.
And I also want to call it the name of your book because I'm going to keep referring to your book. The book is called The ADHD Field Guide for Adults. Okay. The ADHD Field Guide for Adults. If you're watching the video, you'll see it in the background of Kate's screen, but if you're audio only, there we
if
go.
You're audio only, picture a neon yellow book.
It's really bright, y'all.
Ugliest yellow that you have ever imagined. Imagine it, but now imagine it a little harder.
But it's a good conversation starter because it's so bright. I was at a hotel this past weekend and someone came up to me and was like, "Oh my God, is that book good? I just found out I have ADHD." And I was like, "It is good and you should get it."
Oh my God. I'll send you a kickback for that. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
But it was fun. I was almost like, because the book is so bright and like catches the attention, I think it probably like attracts ADHD people to like look at it, you know?
That was honestly so there's lore around the book. So the original title of the book was You're Not a Fuck Up. That was supposed to be what the book is called. Okay. But then the publishers, and I get it, I understand, like it's a lot harder to market a book called You're Not a Fuck Up versus the ADHD Field Guide for Adults.
Yeah.
but so they made the decision to change the name, and we're like, okay, fine, like,
Yeah.
like I get it. And then they sent us like the first couple cover designs, and the first one that we got, they really went hard into that like field guide. So it was this very like Boy Scout brown and Girl Scout green, like weird. And then there was like a tan one and all this stuff, and we were like, hey, can we get something maybe a little more fun, a little more pizzazz? And so they sent us a series. I think there were like 4 or 5, and it was like neon yellow, neon teal, neon pink, neon green, and like something else. And I was like, I don't want to use pink because I knew that I wanted to use Cate Osborn's pink for the second book. So I was like, okay, that one's out. And so the process of elimination, we're like, what if we just went obnoxious highlighter yellow, because then that way the book is hard to lose, and then thusly the ADHD Field Guide was born.
And it's so fun that the way the book is designed on the inside is also like very ADHD friendly. Like I've never seen a book like that for adults, you know?
It is fascinating that you say that, because the entire book, the reason why the book got written was because of that. Right. Because one of the things that I really struggled with is my background is in academia. And so I am accustomed to reading studies and scientific papers and very dry things. But my co-author, Eric, we kind of exist on like polar opposite scales when it comes to our experience with ADHD. Like I was the burnt out gifted kid who put all of my self-worth in being academically very successful, you know, ground myself into dust getting straight A's because I loved the validation and the sort of like affirmation that I would get being like that like good kid in school. Eric was the opposite. Eric really struggled. Eric struggled with reading and all of these different things. And so when we started thinking about like what did we want this book to be, the first thing that we kept coming back to was like, there is no book about ADHD that is accessible for people with ADHD to read.
It's wild. Yeah.
And it was weird. And we're like, surely we must be mistaken. Like it is surely. And we bought all of these different books, and we read all of these different books, and like, you know, some of them, you know, are by people with ADHD. Some of them are simply for people with ADHD. Those ones are the worst offenders in terms of like good luck getting through some of this stuff. Yeah. But we really set out to create a book that was accessible for ADHD, that you don't have to read in order, that you don't have to finish.
Yes.
There is no set way of reading the book. We
pitched
it to the publisher. We literally were like, we want this book to feel like an Uncle John's bathroom reader, where you can kind of just open it up to any page and learn something interesting about ADHD, and then set it down for 6 months and forget it.
Yep.
And that is the number one piece of feedback that we've been getting from people.
Yeah.
The number one thing that people are saying is like, this is the first book that has been accessible to me in years and years. This is the only book that I've ever seen about ADHD that is designed to be accessible to me. Yeah. And we get a lot of really great feedback around that, and it's something that I am really proud of. Really proud of.
Yeah. It was really cool. And I think some of the sex things that popped out at me too, in addition to the sexual assault statistic, was also just how many people struggle with erectile dysfunction. And just like difficulty orgasming and difficulty staying present. And so I'm curious. You also had this section about kink, which I found interesting. I was a little surprised there wasn't more of a correlation between ADHD and kink.
Oh, well, so
let's explore further.
Well, the thing is that is hard because, one, the way that we terrified some of the editors, just like mentioning it
Oh my
at all. That's how you say that word, mentioning. Yeah. Just mentioning it all. But then two, the other thing is that, again, like I've been sort of the ADHD Field Guide for Adults was secret. My plan for world domination involved drop book 1, get people interested, get people to understand the possibilities inherent in talking about ADHD in this way. Step 2, book 2. And book 2 is sex, intimacy, relationships, and kink specifically. So there's a much, much larger section coming out. Or cool. I say like book 2 is already happening. Like I know I have been working on book 2.
It's starting.
But that was one of the things, is like, because this book was kind of the entry level, because this book was the 101, it was really difficult to sort of pick and choose what topics we wanted to cover. And so, you know, I could have written an entire book just about ADHD and kink, because I think it's fascinating.
Cool.
But it was one of those things where like we really kind of had to just kind of we had a
like
little bit of space
level.
to talk about a lot of stuff. So that's kind of the decision that we had to make.
Okay. So what do you think is the overlap with ADHD and kink? Like, or how do they intersect?
Well, Heather, I'm so glad you asked. Because I don't like, I first off, get rid of the word kink. Get rid of the word kink. Because kink is like is like not here, obviously. This is a safe space.
It is.
But in the broader, I think, sort of public, kink is stigmatized.
Yeah.
But if you distill kink down into its component parts, what do you have? You have added stimulus, you have taking away stimulus, and you have direct and specific negotiation, boundaries, and dynamics and ways of being that are explicitly spelled out. That is like the most perfect, most bestest, most goodest way of existing in sex and intimacy for a person with ADHD. It is the direct intersection of what do our brains need. Our brains crave novelty, they crave stimulus, they crave sensation, right? And then some people it can be like overwhelming, right? And so there's a distractibility element, and there is a hyper focus element. So it's like sometimes things can become too much. Okay, so we can remove sensation, we can use a blindfold, we can tie somebody up, we can do all these like kinky things, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, all it is kink is a toolbox that I really truly feel is just perfectly designed for the ADHD brain to exist in. Yeah. And I think where we get hung up a lot of times is that because just generally, I know you know this, but generally conversations around sex and intimacy are so stigmatized anyway. And then you add in this element of like, what do you mean you want to be spanked or hit or whatever? like, oh my God, that's crazy, right? And it's like, okay, but what is being hit? It is impact, right? What is that? That is an immediate stimulus, that is an attention getter, that is a moment of diverting your attention back to your body, that is building the brain body connection in terms of building expectation and anticipation and this kind of thing. And so it's like you can give me a yes no maybe list of just like whatever and I can tell you, I can it's a fun party trick. I can look at that and I go, here's why this works for somebody with ADHD. Here's how this works in terms of like neurodivergence. Here's why this might be great. Here's why this might be bad, because I think it's important to understand both. Like, some people don't want to be spanked or whatever, and that's totally fine as well. My dog's going to start barking.
Oh, that's fine. We welcome
Please
animals.
Excuse me for a second.
Yeah. Sometimes my cats run around in the background.
But yeah, so like, and that's really it, is that kink is this just like beautiful moment of absolute discussion and consent and boundaries and stimulus that just works so well with the way that ADHD brains function.
It's so funny because now I'm doing a full circle moment back to the improv, because I've always thought of the kink community as like grown up theater kids, and I think there's a lot of overlap.
Listen, I don't want to cast aspersions, but I would say that if you brought the local improv community out and then you were like, and there's going to be a kink night, most people would stay. The Venn diagram, stack of pancakes.
Yeah, because I feel like there's novelty and there's excitement. And, I'm even thinking recently I had my improv friends over for a game night. I'm like, this is like such a more dynamic game night than like I'm used to having. Just because I think people are a little bit less inhibited and just, they're yes people. Yeah. If you are digging this episode, give us a follow on whatever platform you're listening on. This helps us to keep producing the show, to grow the show, get all the amazing guests that you want, and spread the word about sex education and lots of fun and orgasms and playfulness and happy faces. So follow the show. Thanks, guys.
I do a lot of work in the TTRPG community, and I kind of feel the same way. Like game nights with people who play D&D versus people who are just like board gamers, very different experience. Okay. And then you add like improv and D&D, and you're like, okay, now we're like next level. Now we're doing now we're really doing something here.
I haven't done D&D yet. That's on my list to try. I'm afraid of the commitment level required.
Oh my God. I'll run a one shot for you sometime. It'll be great. You can just do a one shot. Just test it out. That's what I need. Toe in the water. It'll be great.
That's what I need. Okay. Thank you. So let's talk a little bit more about the distractibility during sex, because I think that's so relatable. And I think even neurotypical people for sure relate to that, where they're just kind of like, I got to clean the house and I got to do whatever. And I'm like, how am I supposed to just like do sex right now? You know, like, what do you suggest for those people?
Man,
I know.
I mean, I think the real truth is a lot of it depends. Like I get asked that question a lot. Like, how do I fix it? The answer is I don't know.
Yeah.
And the reason I have to say I don't know is because I don't know you. What I do know is how to build systems and structures. I'm good at that, right?
Okay.
But every person is going to need something different when it comes to systems and structures. And so when we talk about distractibility, sometimes it is literally getting distracted. Sometimes it is literally, the example I always use is the ceiling fan is clicking, or the neighbor starts mowing his lawn, or your dog starts barking in the middle of a podcast or whatever, right?
Right.
And sometimes it's, okay, well, we turn off the ceiling fan, or we close the window, or whatever. Sometimes it's as easy as just removing the distraction and we move on. Sometimes, like you just wonderfully named, the distraction element is very different, because maybe the distraction element is the pile of laundry that has been like living at the foot of your bed for 2 weeks. Maybe the distractibility is, trying to access intimacy and wondering, like, did I pack the kids' lunches for school? Like, did I remember to sign the form? Did I get the field trip money sent in time? Whatever. Sometimes it's that, right?
Right.
And so in those moments, sometimes the answer is you do the laundry first. Right. Yeah. Sometimes the answer is do the laundry before you have sex. It's just going to be it's going to be a relief. It's going to be a weight off your shoulders. Sometimes the reason why the laundry isn't getting done, or the school lunches aren't getting packed, is because there's a breakdown in the systems and structures by which you are living in your household. And maybe there is inequity in terms of who is balancing the workload. And so to be able to access intimacy and to be able to access pleasure, there needs to be a sort of fundamental restructuring of, I cannot carry all of this and also want to have sex with you. I cannot be solely responsible for all of the things that are happening in the household, and then at the end of the day have the energy for a good fuck, right?
Right.
And so sometimes it's evaluating that. Sometimes it is a moment of, how do I say this in a way that makes sense? This is going to sound like I'm completely off track, but I'm going to bring it back around.
I believe you.
Sometimes it is understanding the mechanisms by which our brains and our bodies understand sex, because sex is a series of tasks. Our brain really and truly doesn't distinguish between having sex and making a sandwich. There are still a series of tasks that are involved.
Okay.
And so when we start talking about like distractibility or executive dysfunctioning, you can sort of look at the sandwich quandary and apply it to the sex quandary, right? Are we getting interrupted in terms of like, I need to get to the kitchen to make a sandwich, but something has distracted me along the way. I need to get to the bedroom or the dinner table. I don't know, whatever. If you're freaky, wherever you're trying to smash.
Yeah, we support you.
Is the getting there the problem? Is it that sex is quite literally a series of tasks? In what order do we engage in intimacy? Is there foreplay? Is there kissing? Is there massage? Is there wrestling? I don't know, whatever you're into, right?
Yeah.
But that is all a series of tasks.
Yep.
And at any moment, in any one of those tasks, our brains and or our bodies can get interrupted, especially if we are navigating ADHD. And task transitioning between tasks is an executive function that notoriously ADHD brains struggle with.
Yes.
So you can even get to the moment of like, man, I'm having a really good time making out with my partner, but the transition between making out and engaging in penetrative sex feels really difficult. It feels really inaccessible. So I'm kind of stuck in this, like, I want there to be more. I want there to be something else happening, but this transition feels like a lot. I'm not sure how to access that transition. So there's that. And then there's also the fact that because our brains constantly crave stimulus and novelty and engagement, sometimes, and this is going to be a brutally honest truth said in a brutally honest way, but sex is a pattern. It is a flow. It is the act of having sex is often very rhythmic. And so what we can see sometimes is like there will literally be somebody inside of you. But the rhythmic aspect of like fucking, it starts to be like, oh, well, I know what's going on. I know what's going on. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, right? Yeah. And you've got like that pattern.
It's like
going,
a dance routine.
Like it's a dance routine. Like 5, 6, 7, 8. But because of that sort of rhythmic pattern, it can make it easier for our brains to check out. And so now you find yourself in this like incredibly weird position of like literally somebody is inside of me right now. And I'm thinking about like, man, I sure like Hamilton the musical. I don't know, whatever you're thinking about. I don't know, right? And then there's a moment, right? And then there's this moment, though. There's this narrative that our culture has kind of created around like, I'm having sex, I'm being intimate. There's somebody literally inside of me right now. I should be able to focus. I should be paying attention to them. I should be focused on this. I must be a bad person. I must be a bad partner. I must be a bad lover because I've checked out and I've started thinking about Hamilton the musical. And it's like, no. Your brain is just seeking novelty. It's just seeking stimulus wherever it can get it. Yeah. And so punishing yourself for that or judging yourself for that is just going to make the situation 10 times worse because now you're obsessively going, okay, be in the moment. No, be in the moment harder. Be in the moment even harder. Like, am I enjoying myself?
Right. Always very helpful.
Yeah, always very helpful to just evaluate, the moment
and shame yourself
in the moment and shame yourself for not being in the moment hard enough, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so all of that, you can kind of file under distractibility, but as you can imagine, there's a very different like functionality between, oh, we'll just click off the ceiling fan and we're going to unlearn a lifetime of baggage and trauma around judging ourselves for being a terrible partner because of the way that our brain just like leaps to random thoughts and random moments out of nowhere.
I like that. I feel like a lot of what you're saying is like just kind of like allowing yourself to like, if you're distracted, it's okay to just pause and turn it off, or like, like it's okay to just say what you need, or if you need a little more variety, it's okay to change it up.
Yeah, change it up. And like a lot of it too is around communicating the best. Like I will, and again, this is one of those things where if you know one person with ADHD, you know one person, right? Because there are some people, like if you look at somebody, well, okay, how do I say this in a way that makes sense? Like eye contact, like a really sexy, like look at me, like that can go so hard, right? Like that can be like so hard and so sexy in the moment, unless that person really struggles with eye contact and now they're in a literal, actual, living fucking nightmare. And so it's like that kind of thing, right? Where a lot of times we have to be so careful around ascribing a single fix or a single solution.
Absolutely.
Just make more eye contact with your partner. Okay, well, I'm autistic. I'd rather die.
Yeah,
like,
you're like, please
no,
thank you ever.
That's a living hell, like forcing them to make eye contact. And so that's where we really get into this sort of, I don't know, the sort of core of the work that I do is a lot of it is around knowing yourself. And it's around being able to communicate these things and advocate for yourself and advocate for your needs ahead of time. You don't want to be having these conversations in the bedroom as the sex is happening. You want to have the conversation beforehand and say, hey, like I really struggle actually with intense eye contact. And it makes me feel really uncomfortable. So, I love a good, like, look at me, but then like, maybe it's like, look at me for a second and then we're going to move on to something else. Or, finding other ways of sort of engaging in that, like, are you here with me? Like, what are you feeling? Like, there's all sorts of different like check-ins that you can have.
Yeah.
But then it becomes literally my ceiling fan is clicking.
Right on cue.
That's so funny. I was like, what is that noise? Ceiling fan is clicking. That's funny.
So funny.
But then you start sort of pulling the thread of like neurodivergence. You start pulling the thread, right? Because so then like, okay, let's do more verbal check-ins. Well, some people struggle with emotional processing. Some people struggle with alexithymia, like knowing what they are feeling in the moment. Some people struggle with proprioception, which is like struggling with interpreting their body signals. Am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Am I too hot? Am I too cold? I don't know. I literally never know if I need to pee or not. It is a crapshoot every single time. every single time. I never know.
That's wild.
And
yeah.
so my, before we like leave for like a trip or whatever, my husband will be like, do you need to pee? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, let's go see. I'm going to go find out. And sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes the answer is no. I literally really struggle with that sensation. And so asking somebody like, does that feel good? They may not know. Or like, what do you need? They may not know right then in the moment. And so that's why it's really important, I think, to, if you know that your partner is neurodivergent, if you know that your partner struggles with some of these things, building systems and structures and having conversations beforehand that allows that intimacy to be accessible without putting a lot of pressure on them in the moment to like process and have coherent thoughts. Especially when you get into like kink and then you get into like subspace and, some like even people who are not neurodivergent, like they may struggle with like verbalizing thoughts and stuff when they get to a certain amount of like activation in kink. And the same is true, right? Like a lot of neurodivergent people struggle with like verbalizing in certain situations to the point of being like nonverbal, right? And like I'm using like an accessibility device in order to communicate. And so it's like, well, how are you feeling? Like, I don't know. I can't even talk or form words or like feel feelings right now. Why are you asking me this? Like, and so it gets I don't know, for me it gets exciting. Like that's where it gets exciting is like how, like, because it gets wildly complicated, I think. And I always try and use caution when I'm doing interviews like this, because what I don't want people to hear is this is overwhelmingly difficult and there's no way through it and there's no possible way. It is in fact the exact opposite. Is the more that we start understanding about our own pleasure, our own preferences, our own ways of being, the more that we can give that data, share that data with somebody else and really craft a truly pleasurable, truly authentic experience around sex and intimacy that is facilitated and designed expressly for us and us alone. I don't know, because I don't know. I feel like I'm just like ranting at you, and I'm sorry.
But it's totally fine. I think what you're saying that I'm really liking is that it's like everyone's a special snowflake, basically. No two people with ADHD are going to be the same. Some of the stuff you're saying, I'm like, oh yeah, I relate to that. And others, I'm like, I'm on the other side of the spectrum, and we both have ADHD. So I think that's so interesting. Like for me, I'm generally very verbal. I agree, not if in subspace, then somehow that shuts down. But otherwise, I feel everything in my body. I'm probably too aware. And but then for me, like I would probably have a hard time refocusing on sex if I paused in the middle to correct something. So for me, I think I'd need almost the checklist before we get started of like, we have everything accessible that we need. We've already prevented distractions. Now let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that sort of idea of, if one person with ADHD, one person with ADHD.
Exactly.
We especially see this around sexuality and desire. That's one of the biggest differences in a lot of people with ADHD is that there are some people who have a really high sex drive and sex can act as like a stimulating, like novel activity that is like giving dopamine and they want to engage in a lot of sex.
Yes.
But then conversely, we also see a lot of people, especially I think women who are kind of approaching like perimenopause, menopause, that kind of thing, because, oh my God, don't even get me started about that.
It's a whole other topic. I know.
But then, we see like desire and like libido decreasing. And so it can be a lot harder to access that kind of dopamine drop that orgasm can create. And so, so it's, like some people with ADHD like a lot of sex, some people with ADHD don't like a lot of sex. And both of those experiences are just as valid. Yes. But it's really important to know that. So then that way you understand your own baseline and you can start watching for things like, how is menopause impacting my desire, my sex drive, that kind of thing. Because they like literally within the past 10 years was like one of the first times that they've really started researching ADHD and menopause, like, which is crazy to me.
I've already been hearing a lot about that and how a lot of people get diagnosed in their 40s because hormones and ADHD are so connected.
Yeah. And that's really it. Is that we are just now only really starting to really unpack the relationship between ADHD and hormones. And so there's a lot of I don't know, there's a lot of, again, like those complicating factors, those layers of, your experience with my experience with ADHD and sex at 20 is very different than my experience with ADHD and sex at almost 40.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, I was a horny little goblin when I was in my 20s. I was like, it was crazy, right? Because like I very much, and proudly, I identify as demisexual, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like for years and years and years, I always felt like I had this like there was something wrong with me. And then I sort of started learning about like the asexuality spectrum, and I was like, but I like sex.
Yeah.
How can I like sex and be asexual? And, and then I had to like sort of like really break down those like internalized beliefs and like really sort of delve into how like desire and sexual attraction and all of these different things work. But in my 20s, like I sought out sex all the time because it was novel. It was stimulating. It was like that dopamine drop.
Yeah. It's so exciting.
And what is so rude, is that now, kind of as like a researcher, like looking back on that and those experiences, so many of the patterns that we see in the research around like risk-taking behavior and like the higher rates of like sexually, like STIs, like those kind of things, all of those things show up in the research around young women with ADHD, because there are so many people like me who are just like, this feels good and I'm having a good time. I'm going to go to the dungeon again, right? So that's one of the things where I really like to talk about that with parents. I really like cautioning parents of kids with ADHD. Like it is really, really important that that especially like adolescents with ADHD are more likely to engage in like sexual risk-taking behaviors and wind up with like higher rates of STIs and again like sexual assaults and this kind of thing, because we lack impulse control. We lack judgment. We lack emotional regulation. And a lot of times in our 20s, we don't necessarily understand all of the ways that ADHD impacts. Like I didn't even know I had ADHD in my 20s, right?
Yeah.
So it's so important to kind of start talking about those things and building those skills ahead of time so that, your kids are being safe around things like consent and engaging in safer practices and all of that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, there's just a lot there. One of the things that's been coming up with my clients a lot. Today's been a day of women who are married to or dating men with ADHD and emotional dysregulation. And so we've been talking a lot about how like when they're not feeling emotionally connected or when they're feeling like it's like they're walking on eggshells because of like, I don't know how he's going to react. That one seems like a tall order to me as well. Like, what do you do? I kind of want to talk about the partner side, So it's like we've talked about those of us with ADHD. What about the partner side? Like, how do you deal and what's kind of fair to ask of your partner and what's reasonable and what's not?
That's a really good question. And again, I think that there's a lot of, one person might be able to tolerate a lot more from someone than someone else might be, right? But foundationally, and this is going to be my spiciest, hottest, boiling hot take, but is that ADHD does not absolve us of responsibility, nor does it excuse abusive, manipulative, or just like shitty behavior in general. Yeah. And there is a difference. There is a monumental difference between using ADHD as an explanation and an excuse.
Oh, explain that. Yeah.
So an explanation might be, hey, I have ADHD and I struggle with emotional dysregulation. In that moment, I got really dysregulated. I didn't use my systems and my structures that I have built. I didn't step away. I didn't take time. And so I lashed out and I impulsively said the shittiest thing that I possibly could. And I'm really sorry. I'm very sorry that I did that. You didn't deserve that. And I'm going to work harder and build a better system. So the next time this happens, I won't lash out at you in anger.
So you're really owning it still. That's the key. Okay.
Yeah. Versus, well, I have ADHD. I can't help it if I get mad. Like, and that's the difference, right? Because we have an ethical and moral responsibility to treat people well, regardless of our neurotype. And like in the book, I think Eric made up this example that I still think is really funny. But like, if you had a disease that made you compulsively punch people in the face.
Oh yeah. Like that did stick with me, that line. That was funny.
You would hope that every so often, if somebody caught a stray, they would be accommodating and kind and go, oh, you know, Eric has punching people in the face disease, and so like we need to be kind. But if you never took any steps to keep the people around you safe, and you were just throwing right hooks, you know, constantly, that makes you a dangerous person, and that makes you a bad, like, sorry, but it makes you a bad partner, you know? And so if people with ADHD are relying on their partners to do the emotional regulating or be the I don't know, responsible one, or again, sort of like I talked about earlier, carrying the weight of like, well, I have ADHD, so I can't do the dishes. I have ADHD, so I can't do the laundry.
Right.
That is not a healthy partnership. That is not an ethical partnership. And what is so frustrating is that I see a lot of people ask me questions like that as well, of like, my partner uses their ADHD as an excuse for everything.
Yeah.
What do I do? And my answer is dump his ass. But you can't say that. You get in trouble for saying that.
You're supposed to not tell other people what to do. It's real frustrating sometimes.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. But realistically, people with ADHD can do hard things. And I think it is almost more insulting to look at somebody, to look at ourselves with, I'm going to make it about me. Like if I looked at myself and I said, there's no possible way that I can learn emotional regulation skills. There's no possible way that I can figure out how to equitably share the housework with my husband. There's no possible way that I can ever improve or ever do better. I am infantilizing myself. I am doing myself such a disservice when it comes to becoming the best possible version of myself and being a good partner and being ethically in a relationship. And so, I get really frustrated around that, because I think there are a lot of very caring, very loving partners who would bend over backwards and move the world to make their partner happy. But if your partner's happiness is coming at the expense of your own, and if your partner's comfort is coming at the expense of your own, that is not a healthy partnership. And ADHD is only an explanation up to a certain point, and then it becomes, great, you struggle with doing the dishes, you struggle with emotional dysregulation, what are you doing to fix it?
Yeah.
And the question can be, what are we doing to fix it? Because, you know, like for me, my husband knows I don't mind loading the dishwasher, but for whatever reason, unloading the dishwasher, I find to be deeply tedious.
Yes.
And so we split the task and we have that conversation. And you know what? Sometimes I forget to load the dishwasher, and he goes, hey, I'll handle it this time. Or he does both, because he's a very sweet man, you know?
Nice.
But me looking at him going, I can't because I have ADHD. Like, that's so unfair.
That's not really fair.
And so, I don't know. Sometimes I think one of the hardest things around ADHD, especially if you are a person who never grew up with supports or really even understanding that you had ADHD, or we also see a lot of people who get told, you have ADHD, good luck. And they have no idea the extent to which ADHD can impact, you know, just like your way of being. I think sometimes it can be really easy to kind of just skate by doing the bare minimum, especially if you have a partner who is willing to pick up that slack.
Yeah.
But I really think a really difficult but really necessary part of thriving with ADHD is really looking into radical accountability and radical vulnerability when it comes to, like, when have I been a shitbag? Because I will tell you, I will be the first person to tell you, I have been a shitty partner. I have been a manipulative partner. I have relied on like rejection sensitivity and emotional dysregulation as like the means by which I navigate relationships. I've relied on people pleasing. I have done like some really truly shitty things in previous relationships because I didn't understand how my ADHD and my autism were impacting these relationships. But once I knew, once I started understanding, then it immediately became my responsibility to start saying, I can't people please my way into relationships anymore. I have to present a real version of myself. I cannot manipulate my way into getting what I want anymore. I have to say it directly. I have, it's that kind of stuff. And that can be really hard to hear. And I know, I know there are going to be people in the comments who get mad at my saying that. But I really think that's something that we just don't talk about a lot because it can be really difficult to hear at first. But what I have found is like once I got over the kind of gut punch of shame of like, oh, I have been guilty of being a shitty partner. Like I have been guilty of utilizing manipulative tactics in my relationships. Once I kind of moved through that, I found myself much happier because I was then able to go, and now I have built better systems. I'm able to be more honest with myself. I'm able to be more fully and authentically myself without carrying this feeling of I have to hide, I have to mask, I have to carry shame and guilt and embarrassment. I can just put all of that out in the open and hope, and my husband is great, but like whatever partner I'm engaging with at the time, that gives them that opportunity to then respond back to me authentically and really and develop a much stronger and much healthier relationship across the board.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that makes so much sense. It's like, regardless of what cards you've been dealt, like you're still responsible for how you're playing them. And, it might be a little harder at times. And I personally feel like I need people to give me a little bit of grace, but like knowing that I'm trying, like I'm not phoning it in here, but like, but yeah, I think we're still responsible. And I think that's where people might have to be honest with their partners of like, hey, it feels like maybe you're not taking responsibility for some of this behavior.
Yeah. And you're right. Like I think a good, healthy partnership, there is always an element of grace. There's always an element of understanding. There's always an element of like, my husband gives me shit constantly for like, I leave the cabinet doors open or like I come, like literally the other day I came home with a harp and he was like, makes sense, and it's like that kind of thing, but there's a difference between giving someone grace because you understand that they are trying their best and seeing someone not trying at all and excusing that behavior.
That is very different.
Yeah. It's very different.
Very different. And I mean, I think what happens, what I see a lot with, the sex area is like resentment is one of the biggest sex killers.
Yep.
Like if someone's just like, you're not managing your emotions and you're yelling and you're criticizing me and like, I don't really want to have sex with that.
Yeah. And we see that's so common.
Yeah.
The other one is parentified relationships where
100%.
just like one partner is just like constantly the mom to their ADHD partner. Like that's nobody, like that is, I would say like that resentment, that kind of like shame, and then that like sort of parentified, like one partner is doing all of the emotional and usually physical labor as well. And it's just like, dude, like, do you really expect me to want to fuck you right now? Like that's crazy.
I know. You're like, I'm exhausted from doing all the work you're not doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that is very real as well. Okay. So I'd love to just do a brief topic on like orgasm and erectile dysfunction. How do those relate to ADHD? Like, why do you think they're happening more often with ADHD?
It's a couple of different things at the same time.
Okay.
A lot of it comes from that, distractibility element, like because there is an element of like you have to kind of focus in order to achieve orgasm. You have to kind of be in the moment and be present in order to sustain an erection.
Yeah.
So a lot of times that's like the biggest component.
Okay.
The other component can also come from that kind of that noticing moment that I talked about earlier of like, wow, it's taking me a really long time to come. I sure hope that they're not mad at me. Oh man, am I a bad lover? Should I try harder? And that sort of like, and now you completely taken yourself out of the moment and you're evaluating and you're operating from a place of this like evaluation and which can be so much more difficult in order to stay in the moment to accomplish orgasm. There's also, again, like talking about like ADHD and hormones, our hormones tend to sort of naturally fluctuate over our lifetime. But as we get older and as we start aging, like testosterone levels drop, so do, estrogen, all of that kind of stuff. And so that can also impact our ability to orgasm, and that can impact our ability to achieve arousal, erections, or even just like getting wet, like, that kind of thing. All of that can be impacted by hormonal levels. But those hormonal levels are also often directly related to things like attention and focus, and emotional regulation. And so you wind up with this thing where it's like, I'm not feeling it. And also like, I have no desire. So maybe if I just like try harder, I'll like, and it's like, none of that's not how any of this works.
No, typically backfires.
Yeah. So I would say that's kind of the biggest things are that like sort of distractibility, the being in your head and over evaluating, and then just like straight up just like hormonal changes over time.
Okay. Amazing. Thank you so much for dropping all of the knowledge bombs on us today.
Thanks for having me. I love being able to talk about this stuff. This is not what I thought I was going to do for my job when I grew up. But it is just, it's become, it's really important to me. And it's really interesting to me just how many people just don't have this information, and how many people just are missing this core component piece around ADHD.
I know.
So thank you for hosting this conversation. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think it is really important. It's not talked about enough. And it's been interesting to me going into sex therapy, like the high percentage of my clients that are neurodivergent, so like the overlap is important. And, reading your book, I learned more about myself. I was like, oh, wow, even more things that I identify with now. This is great. So thank you for writing it. Thank you everyone for listening as well. We will link to Cate's book in Instagram in the show notes. You can check that out. And otherwise, we will catch you in another couple weeks on the next episode of Sex for Couples. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Are you somebody who wants a better intimate connection with your partner, but feels like you're stuck in the same loops, lack desire, or just don't know why things aren't quite clicking? It can be frustrating because you want closeness and connection, but instead you're left guessing what's going on, feeling misunderstood, or wondering whether things will ever feel good again. So what if instead you could get clear on what's really holding you back and how to move forward with confidence? So that is exactly why I created the Why You're Stuck in a Sex Rut quiz. So this is a personalized quiz that helps you uncover the real reasons your intimacy isn't where you want it to be and gives you the insights that you can actually act on. Through the quiz, you'll discover what patterns are keeping you stuck, the hidden emotional or physical blockers that matter most, and actionable ways to start shifting things for the better. So if you want to finally understand what's really going on and how to get the spark back, go to thebetterbedroom.com or click the link in the show notes and take the Why You're Stuck in a Sex Rut quiz.